Hi everyone, my name's Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and what you can't see, because I have angled this camera very carefully, is the chaos that is surrounding me. My office is currently a mess. I've done that thing where I am tidying by making piles, but then not really doing anything with those piles. To be fair, a lot of this stuff is going to move. So I have a box of Christmas presents that will be wrapped and posted out to people. I have some boxes of baby things. I've got some boxes of books I need to review for work. It's all just a little bit chaotic. One of the piles that I have yet to sort through is books that I have bought recently or been sent for review. So I thought we could at least tackle that in this video, as in I'm going to show you the books that I bought recently and have been sent for review, and then those can go on my shelves. And that is one thing ticked off the list. But this video is also going to be a video in two parts, because as well as being a haul video, I thought we could do some shelf sorting. I'm going to take you into the other room where the majority of my shelves are and go through some shelves, also show you in detail several of them which you've been asking me to do, and in general just have a chat. So yeah, a little bit of chaotic energy in this video, but I feel like we all need that sometimes. All the books that I'm going to show you that are new to me and going on my shelves, I will list in the description box down below if that's helpful. Titles and authors will also be in the captions, which I have corrected to make sure they're accurate if you want to turn those on. Let's get into it. First off, two anthologies that I'm part of that have just been published. We've got Bylines, an anthology of contemporary bi+ poets. So we've got poets in here who identify as bi, pan, etc., as I do. And if you have purchased 100 Queer Poems, which was an anthology I was also part of, which was edited by Andrew McMillan and Mary Jean Chan, and you enjoyed that, then I think you may enjoy this one too. That one was encompassing queerness as a wider umbrella, and this one is for, as I said, bi+ poets. But I'm very happy to be part of this anthology, and I will link it in the description box down below if you would like to go find out more. Then I was asked to be part of this anthology, which is called Northern Dreaming. It's been published by the British Library and it's in conjunction with Leeds 2023. I am not from Leeds, I am from Sunderland, but this is a collection of northern writers writing poetry and pieces of non-fiction that are aimed at children all the way from newborn up until age 18. My poem that I wrote for this book is called My Dream Bookshop and is about imagination and disability and accessibility and the power of books, with a mermaid thrown in too, because we always need a bit of folklore, don't we? Again, I will link this in the description box down below because it's a lovely project. I believe that this book is being given to every child born in Leeds in 2023, which is really cool. And I think there are quite a few events that are happening surrounding this book too. So details in the description box. I have mentioned this collection of novellas before because I'm quite a fan, and that is the Pushkin Japanese novella series. They've released one series before, I believe, in 2017-ish, and that was how I became acquainted with Hiromi Kawakami's work. I read her book Record of a Night Too Brief. It's also where I discovered Miko Kawakami's Miss Ice Sandwich, which so far is the only book of hers that I have read and enjoyed, but I really love that one. They have a new series of Japanese novellas being published this year. Some came out in the summer and some are coming out in the autumn, and they very kindly sent me two of their newer ones for review. One of them is even manga, which is very cool, and that is Nishioka Kyodai's Kafka, and this is 9 of Franz Kafka's short stories which have been adapted and retold by Kyodai. Then this is them being translated back into English by David Yang, and they've also been illustrated by Kyodai as well. So they look like this on the inside. I'll show you another spread as well so you can really see what the art looks like. It's very cool. There we go. So that's that one, and then they've also sent me this, which is a new novella that's been translated by Natsuko Imamura, who's the author of The Woman in the Purple Skirt. I didn't love that book, but I really wanted to, and I'm hoping, like with Miko Kawakami, I'm going to enjoy other books by her even if I didn't enjoy the first one of hers that I went to. This is Amiko, Do You Copy? And it's about Amiko, who is struggling, I think, to communicate and make friends with people. So sounds like it's in a similar vein to The Woman in the Purple Skirt, and I will report back and let you know what I think. Last month, I read Emily Urquhart's book, Ordinary Wonder Tales, having previously read and really enjoyed her non-fiction book, Beyond the Pale, which I think was her debut. And so I decided I would pick up this non-fiction book of hers too, which I haven't yet read, obviously, because I just bought it. It's called The Age of Creativity, Art, Memory, My Father and Me. The reason I said I hadn't read this one yet is because it came out between the two that I have already read. This one is about art and it's about her father and, well, it's about dementia. You can get a lot of what this is about from the subheading. I think I had been hesitant to pick this one up because I wasn't sure if I would love it as much as her other work, because it's not centered on folklore like her other work is. But in Ordinary Wonder Tales, there was an essay talking about her father and dementia, and I just thought it was brilliant, like all of her work is. So I thought, what am I doing? That's ridiculous. I'll probably love this one too. So I have decided to buy it. And then I also bought a book from Persephone Books, which, as you know, because I talk about them quite a bit, is a publisher and a bookshop. They publish work, mainly forgotten classics written by women, but they do publish a few men, and this is one of the men they publish, who is R.C. Sherriff. The first book of his, actually the only book of his that I have read so far, was the Hopkins manuscript, which I loved. And then I have his book Green Gates sitting on my shelf, and then this is Fortnight in September. So I would really like to read one of those two books by the end of the year, because I probably should have read Green Gates before buying another one. Naughty. This one, as I said, is called Fortnight in September, and it's about a family that goes away for a fortnight every September. I don't think that much happens in it, but the inside sleeve says that this is about Mr. Stevens, who lives in Dulwich, and he goes away every September with his nearly grown-up son Dick, his grown-up daughter Mary, and his schoolboy son Ernie. They keep a cat and a canary. They always stay in the same lodgings when they go away. Here is a subject which could have been treated satirically, cleverly, patronisingly, sentimentally, but Mr. Sherriff comes to it fresh and makes it universal. There is more simple human goodness and understanding in this book than anything I have read for years. It is so beautiful. So that's high praise. I'm not sure if I'll read this one or Green Gates before the end of the year, which is about a retired couple. I am thinking maybe Green Gates and save this one for next September, for no other reason other than I like to read seasonally, but we'll see. A book I'm sure that a lot of people will have bought recently is The Christmas Appeal by Janice Hellett. This came out a couple of weeks ago, and it's a follow-up to her biggest book, which is The Appeal, which I read and enjoyed but was frustrated by parts of. I've since read The Alperton Angels and enjoyed that more than The Appeal. Haven't yet read The Twyford Code, but hope to curl up with this one over the holidays. If you haven't read Janice Hallett's work before, her novels are crime novels told through letters, text messages, emails, and you're trying to solve it as you go. I think it's easier to try and solve The Appeal than it was the case of The Alperton Angels, but it's a very fun exercise. They are extremely readable and you can whiz through them. This one is obviously quite short, but her other ones are very long, but I have never taken very long to read them because I don't know if it's the format or her tone or if it's just they're super compelling, maybe a combination of all of them, but it never takes me long to whiz through them, so don't let the size put you off. This is Moving Mountains, also a new release I purchased a copy of. This is disability writing focused on nature with work from Karani Baraka and Polly Atkin, Jamie Hale, Hannah Hodgson, Abby Palmer, Alice Tarbuck, and lots of other people as well, including writers whose work I've never read before, so that's exciting. As I said before, I love that about anthologies because it means that you might find new writers to fall in love with. I also purchased a copy of Jack Underwood's most recent poetry collection. I did an event with Charlotte Eichler recently and we were talking about new releases, and she said that she thought I would really love this book, and I don't think she's recommended a book to me that I haven't enjoyed before. I think this is Jack Underwood writing about his first year of fatherhood. It's called A Year in the New Life. There were a couple of poems in his previous collection which touched on fatherhood and which I did enjoy, so I look forward to getting to this one. I purchased this short story collection because I saw Mercedes talking about it, and I will link her channel in the description box down below. It's called Attention Seekers by Emma Brankin, and it just sounds really good. It says, in this thrilling and unflinching debut collection, an eclectic group of characters struggle with the lure of the limelight. A teenager escapes school gossip to hang out with a dead Tudor queen. A reality show applicant has a bitter axe to grind. A spiraling woman weaponizes her cat's internet fame to keep track of her ex. A guest has a mute meltdown while reluctantly attending a silent retreat. That last one just, I don't know, it really tickles me. So I'm hoping this one's going to be quite humorous, but maybe at the same time hard hitting. And I think that pairing works really well, because if you have two extremes, it helps to highlight the highs and the lows really, really well. I saw that Hiromi Kawakami had a new short story collection that has been translated. It's from a press that I don't think I've ever purchased from before, called Stonebridge Press. I'm hoping that there's no crossover between the stories in here and other short stories by her I've read before, such as in People from My Neighbourhood, which was a collection of very short stories published by Granta a couple of years ago. But this one's called Dragon Palace, and it's translated from the Japanese by Ted Goosen. There are 8 stories in here. It says, meet a shape-shifting con-man, a goddess who uses sex to control her followers, an elderly man possessed by a fox spirit, a woman who falls in love with her 400-year-old ancestor, a kitchen god with 3 faces in an apartment block infested by weasels, and a man nurtured through life by his 7 extraordinary sisters, and a woman who is handed from husband to husband until she is finally able to return to the sea. That last one in particular, that one has me. I also bought this because I read the anthology Peach Pit last month and discovered this author inside it. This is Alice Ash, and this is her short story collection Paradise Block. I've bought a few short story collections recently, and those are the shelves that I would particularly like to sort out today. The blurb of this says that in this book, mould grows as thick as fur along the walls. Alarms ring out at unexpected hours, and none of the neighbours seem quite what they seem. So I think maybe this is set around an apartment block, which is my favourite kind of thing to read. I love that. Revenge by Yoko Ogawa does a similar thing, and that's one of my favourite short story collections ever. So I'm not sure how interconnected these stories are. Maybe it's just the place and none of their stories actually collide, but we will see. It says, a little girl boils endless eggs in her family's burnt out flat. An isolated old woman entices a new friend with gifts of cutlery, and a young bride grows frustrated with her unappreciative husband, the caretaker of their crumbling, dilapidated housing complex. So then I have a couple of 2024 releases here. We've got Chigozie Obioma's new book. I loved his debut, which was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2015. And I read all the shortlist that year, and his was my favourite. It was called The Fisherman. His new one is called The Road to the Country, and this is set during Civil War, and it's a story of brothers. It is coming out. When are you coming out? In May. So I'll be reading this one hopefully in a few months' time. And then we have Real Americans by Rachel Khong, and this one is also coming out in May 2024. This one is going to be one of the major leads, I think, for next year, because it was bought, as the press release says, at a 17-way auction. So lots of people wanted to get their mitts on this one. It says it is an exhilarating novel of American identity that spans 3 generations in one Chinese-American family, and asks what makes us who we are and how inevitable are our futures. Earlier this month, I read Huma Qureshi's book, Playing Games. It is her debut novel. I'd previously read and loved her short story collection, Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love. Her novel I adored too, so I decided to buy her non-fiction book as well. This is called How We Met, a Memoir of Love and Other Misadventures. Huma grew up in the 90s, and I think it's talking about her teenage years, but then also talking about love. It says as she became an adult, she realised that marriage, arranged or otherwise, couldn't be the all-consuming purpose of her life, so she learned to start focusing on herself. And then she met someone, neither Pakistani, nor Muslim, nor brown, and therefore technically not suitable at all. When your worlds collide, how do you measure one love against another? Now, if you've been here for any length of time, you know that I'm not really into romance type stuff, but I just love Huma's writing so much. The way she writes about relationships, the way that she captures dialogue, I just adore it. So I would like to read everything she's written. Thank you very much. Another short story collection that I have purchased is Camilla Grudova's new short story collection. I didn't love her book, The Doll's Alphabet, which came out, I want to say about 2018. It was published by Fitzcarraldo, but I adored her novel Children of Paradise. It was my favourite book from this year's Women's Prize longlist. And this, The Coiled Serpent, is her new short story collection, which came out last week, I think. Here's just a quick summary of 2 stories in this collection. We have got Victoria, who is sent to a cursed hotel for ailing girls when her period mysteriously stops. And then we have also got someone who's curating a venomous garden for public consumption. That just sounds brilliant. Then finally, before we move on to sorting out my shelves, I bought these 3 beautifully published books from a publisher in America that I had never heard of before, but I saw one of their books recommended on Twitter, and then I went and did a deep dive into their catalogue and just got completely sucked in. So the publisher in question is called Sublunary Editions. They're based in Seattle. The one that was being recommended, if I'm remembering correctly, was Indeterminate in Fluorescence by Seong-Bok, which is translated from the Korean by Anton Her. And this is an experimental non-fiction book about poetics. So these are quotes, I think, from some of his lectures about poetry, and I just found them quite charming. So one of them is, when a whale swims, it uses its fins to change direction and its trunk to propel itself forward. In poetry, metaphors are like fins. Use them only when you must. They shouldn't be used for going forward. So that was the one that I wanted to purchase, but then I also discovered these 2 and decided to buy those in the same package. So this one is similarly a book about poetics, a non-fiction book about poetics. It's called The Centor Tree by Ilari Vronka, and this is translated from the Romanian by Cristina Tudor-Sideri. And again, I read some extracts and just thought they sounded really cool. Poetic writing about the writing of poetry. I'm a sucker for things like this. And the last one I bought is called Disembodied by, oh, I can't read that font. Let me look inside. Oh yeah, so this is interesting. So The Centor Tree, as I said, is a Romanian collection, and this is translated from the Romanian by Cristina Tudor-Sideri. But then this book here, Disembodied, is by Cristina, so by the translator. So this is a fiction book talking about the disintegration of a body, a woman, after she has died and how it merges with the earth. It says, clothed in the shadow of the chestnut tree outside the house, my body preserved the posture of a living woman hours after my last breath. Whereas at first I struggled with snakes under my tongue, around my ankles and my wrists, snakes clotting the blood under the skin of my lips and rearranging my limbs to fit the encasement of this new reality, I now watch lavender clouds pass by. Again, was just kind of captivated by the writing and thought that I would give it a shot. And I just love the way that these are published. I think that they're charming. So onto the shelves they're going to go. Because the sun is setting, I think I'm going to film the second half of this tomorrow morning so we can get some better lighting. Touch wood, the perils of filming in November. So I am going to shelve all of these, and then tomorrow we're going to do some bookshelf sorting. So I will see you tomorrow for that. Well, for you it's just going to literally be a second. So I'll see you in 1 second. Goodbye. I have no idea if I'm in focus. This is going to be a really short clip, so if I'm not in focus, I'm sorry. But I just wanted to kind of give you a view of these shelves, and I'll do some cutaways so you can see what I'm pointing at. So these are the shelves in what is currently the spare room that is going to become my office. And in what is currently my office, I have fiction, A to K, and then some nature books. Then here, we've got the rest of fiction in this far bookcase here and spilling over into here. I promise that it makes sense in my head. Then we've got non-fiction in this bookcase here, poetry, this bookcase here. Then we've got short stories here, and then picture books and graphic novels at the bottom. Along the tops of these shelves, we've kind of just got books that I've shoved there that didn't fit anywhere else. So I'd like to go through those at some point too. But today what I'm going to do is go through all of my short story collections. They are woefully out of alphabetical order, and I'm not sure I want to keep every single one here. I'm quite ruthless with my books. At the end of every month, once I filmed a wrap up, I decide which books I'm going to keep, which ones I think I might talk about a lot on the channel, or maybe will want to reread in the future. And any books that I didn't particularly love, I make sure they go to another home. So I'm going to take all of the short story collections off these shelves. I'm going to show each and every one to you. We're going to make a favourites pile so I can tell you about my favourite short story collections ever. And then also talk about some that I'm really excited about that are on my TBR, and maybe unhaul a few as well. Because in a vlog recently, quite a few of you asked if I could show you my short story collections. My short story collections collection. There we go. We got there in the end. So let's do that. And then, as I mentioned in last week's video, I am going to do Vlogmas over on Patreon again this year, which I've done for the past 4 years. So I'm uploading an extra video on Patreon every Monday, Wednesday and Friday from the beginning of December up until Christmas, which is an extra 10 videos. They're not the kind of videos that I upload here. Most of them are going to be short and unedited, but if you would like a bit of bonus content and also it helps support my channel, you can access all of those videos for $2 throughout the month of December. Like all of them collectively are $2, not $2 each. $2 for the whole month. So I am going to be sorting out other sections of my shelves in some of those videos if that happens to be of interest. And all my usual content will still be here on YouTube. I'll still be uploading a video every Sunday as ever. This is just a little bit extra. But yes, short story shelves. I have the short stories from the haul that we just did, which need to go on these shelves. And then there are a few missing that I'm currently reading, but that doesn't matter. Let's get these off these shelves and then go through them. Why is it that whenever you take books off shelves it looks like they've multiplied 3 or 4 times? I don't understand. There's quite a lot of books to get through. You may be able to see this back wall here. I really would like, before I move my office stuff into here, to paint this room. The previous people who lived here filled in holes in the wall, but so messily, I don't understand why they thought this was okay. So I need to sand this down, and then I think I'm probably just going to paint it white. I have thought about a colour, maybe even just an accent wall on this wall. I have some leftover yellow paint from when I painted what is currently my office, which I may do here, but I think it may look nicer to have this wall in a colour and this wall. And can I be bothered to move the bookcases in order to paint this wall too? I'm not sure I can, so I think maybe it's just going to be paint it white for now and maybe do something different with it later, because that's probably the amount of energy that I have. So yeah, if you're wondering what these lovely discoloured parts of the wall here are, it's just some very bad DIY from someone else that I need to fix. Alright, let's go through these books. I thought what might be interesting / confronting would be to split these first into read and unread. I never do that on my bookshelves, everything is mixed together. But just to get some context for myself, I thought that would be a good idea. So I've done that, and it's not surprising that I have more unread than read, because as I said, once I've read a book, I don't always keep it. So it's not as if I don't read the short story collections. I would probably like to read more than I do, but it's just those don't continue to stay, whereas the unread ones continue to stay until they are read. So I have 50 read short story collections that I still have on my shelves, and 73 unread short story collections. So that is a total of 123 books. I don't think that I should sit down and hold up every single book and talk to you about them. So what I'm going to do now is pan down the read and unread pile so you can see all the spines, and then I am going to select, how many shall I select? Let's say, I won't limit my favourites. I'm going to pick out all of my favourites and talk to you about them. We'll see how many there are. And then let me pick out, shall we say, 10 short story collections from my unread pile of books that I have been reacquainted with, that I have remembered existed because of doing this experiment and would potentially like to get to in the not too distant future. And I won't talk about the ones that I included in the haul section of this video. I'll talk about other titles so that we've got a range of stuff going on here. So first of all, here are the 50 read short story collections that I own. I just realised the Book of Tokyo was on that pile, and that is unread. That should be in the unread section. So 50 read books that I have kept. Here are the 73 books that I have not yet read. Let me pick out my favourite short story collections. 10 short story collections I have been reacquainted with and I'm happy to be reacquainted with and would like to get to in the not too distant future, and then also select any books that I think I am going to unhaul today, and then we can chat about those. Let me do that. Be right back. That was fun to go through everything. So what I've done is I have selected 10 books that I have become reacquainted with, the 12 books that are favourites because I couldn't pick 10, and 6 books to unhaul, 3 of which I've read already and 3 of which I haven't read. So maybe let's talk about those first. So the 3 that I haven't read that I've decided to part ways with are 2 that have been sitting on my shelves now for nearly 10 years, and I have picked them up on occasion and I've always put them back down. I just think it's time to admit I'm probably not drawn to them as much as I was when I picked them up. And one that I want to unhaul, I'm actually going to gift to a friend because I think she would enjoy it more than me. And it's one that I think I'm just not going to get as much out of as I would like. And that one is Sensei and Sensibility by Karen Tei Yamashita. And this is a collection of short stories of modern day retellings of Jane Austen characters, I think set in the States. And I have read half of Jane Austen's books, and many of these stories are relating to characters that I am not familiar with. And therefore, I just don't think this is going to be a book that I'm going to really appreciate to the extent that it deserves. So I'm going to pass this one on to an actual big Jane Austen fan because I think that's only fair. And then the 2 that have been sitting on my shelves for years and years and years that I've picked up on occasion and just haven't finished reading. We've got Jellyfish by Janice Galloway, and we've got Almost Famous Women by Megan Mayhew Bergman. This one has been in several reading the oldest books on my TBR vlogs and has remained unread. So I think now is the time to part ways with it. And then 3 books that I have, well, one of them I've read half of and I'm going to part ways with, and that is Knots by Gunhild Øyhag, and this is translated from the Norwegian by Carrie Dixon. I just didn't particularly gel with the writing style. And then these 2 books I really enjoyed, but I just think I have other books on my shelf that I love more that do similar-ish things, and I don't think I'm going to ever reread them, so it makes sense to pass them on to other people who can get a lot of enjoyment out of them. And those are Broken Things by Patrika Tarrant. I really did enjoy this one. I have to say it became a little bit tainted after I read her novel The Knife Drawer and really didn't like it. I didn't enjoy that one at all, and have reviewed it on this channel before. But whenever I look at this book, I now also think of that novel too. So I'm going to pass this one on to somebody else. And then Carmen Maria Machado's Her Body on Other Parties, which I loved, but I actually preferred her non-fiction book, which is In the Dream House. If you haven't read that, please read it. It is phenomenal. But yeah, lots to enjoy here too. I'd recommend it for fans of Kirsty Logan and of Karen Russell and Leslie Necker-Aramat. So yeah, those are the 6 that I am going to pass on to other people. Let me talk to you about the 10 books that I am excited to be reacquainted with. Firstly, we have a book by John Burnside. I haven't read John's work in quite a long time. If you've been here since the beginning, you know that I loved his book, The Dumb House, but I've never read his short stories. And this has been sitting on my shelf since, I don't know, 2016 or something. So this is Something Like Happy. It says, here are stories of snow, of sun, of sea, stories to thrill and excite, to compel and unsettle. Normally his stories are quite grimy, gruesome, with a bit of violence. I don't know if these will be too, but yeah, I would like to read this and see if I do still love his writing, because as I said, I'm divided across his backlist. We've got Elsewhere by Yangi. This only came out this year, so I hadn't forgotten about it, but every time I look at it, I think I would really love to read this, because I loved her book Strange Beasts of China, which is a novel that came out a couple of years ago. That one's translated from the Chinese by Jeremy Tiang. This is a short story collection that she wrote in English herself. So that intrigues me too, but I'm sure there's going to be magical realism in here and lots to love. Tomb Sweeping by Alexandra Chang is also a book that only came out this year, but again, every time I look at this beautiful cover, I think to read that book. This is a series of stories that immerses us in the lives of immigrant families, grocery store employees, expecting parents, and a guileless lab assistant. The Shooting Gallery and Other Stories is by Yuko Shushima, and I have never read her short stories, but I have really enjoyed her novels, which are quite autobiographical, I believe, so I'm guessing that these will be too. She looks at motherhood and women making very questionable decisions and how society judges them for it. Homesick for Another World by Tessa Moshfegh. Again, another writer that I have had quite a hit and miss relationship with. I didn't enjoy Lapvona, but I have loved Death in Her Hands. I quite enjoyed My Year of Rest and Relaxation and Eileen. I don't know if I'm going to love her short stories, but I would like to find out. Pravda Moving Parts is translated from the Thai by Muipa Popsicle, and I read their short story collection The Sad Part Was and found lots to enjoy. Didn't love every short story, but would like to read this one to see if maybe I prefer it. Amos Tutuola is someone who uses folklore as a basis for his stories. He was born in the 1920s. This, I think, was first published in the 1950s, and he's using Yoruba legend to write his stories. I've really enjoyed bits of his writing that I've read in the past, but haven't read his very short stuff. This anthology I had completely forgotten about. It's been sitting on my shelf, and I think I bought it maybe 2 years ago. It's called Dreamland and Other Stories, edited by Sophie Essex. This says this is 21 stories stories from female identifying writers embodying the disconnect between reality and the subconscious, the desire for meaning and the need for escape. And the only author out of these 21 that I'm familiar with is Kirsty Logan, which is why I purchased it in the first place. So I'm really excited to potentially discover other writers that I could fall in love with. How to Pronounce Knife has been sitting on my shelf for far too long. This collection is by Suvan Kamathama-Fongsa, and I think when I did my short story shelf reorganisation 2 or 3 years ago, I said I was really excited to read this one then, and then clearly have not read it, so my bad. It says an ex-boxer turned nail salon worker falls for a pair of immaculate hands. A mother and daughter harvest earthworms in the middle of the night. A country music obsessed housewife abandons her family for a fantasy, and a young girl's love for her father transcends language. I've only heard amazing things about this one. And then also this is a collection of short stories translated from the Korean. This is Bluebeard's First Wife by Ha Sung-nan, and it's translated by Janet Hong, I think is who translates her work. Yes, by Janet Hong. I read her collection Flowers of Mold 2 years ago and really enjoyed it, so I should read this one too. I think the overhead light is flickering slightly, so let's move into my office to finish off this video. We have dimmer switches in quite a few rooms in this house, and we also have energy saving light bulbs, and I don't think dimmer switches are compatible with the light bulbs, so we need to get an electrician to come in and sort that out at some point. But it's just one of those house things when we moved in that got moved down and down the to-do list. Right, so I have my 12 favourite short story collections of all time as I feel today. As with any favourites list, it could change at any point in time. And looking through this list of 12, it's quite clear to me that I have two very distinct tastes. One is for magical realism, fairy tale inspired, sometimes horror-y short stories. And then I also love writers who just perfectly capture complicated family life. So I'm going to talk about those categories separately so that you can easily identify books that may appeal to your particular tastes. So to begin with the magical realism, fairy tale, horror stuff, we have Yoko Ogawa's Revenge. This is translated from the Japanese by Stephen Snyder. This is my favourite book by her. Again, I've had a really hit and miss relationship with other books by her, other novels. Hotel Iris, I really didn't like. The Memory Police, I could take or leave. I thought The Housekeeper and The Professor was fine, maybe a bit twee, but her short stories are where it's at. This is a set of interconnected short stories set around an apartment block, and it has horror elements, and I loved it. A Portable Shelter by Kirsty Logan is two women who are telling stories to their unborn baby in secret because they have told each other, made a promise that they will only tell their child the truth. So the woman who is pregnant tells her bump stories when her wife is at work, and the woman who is not pregnant tells her wife's bump stories when the wife is asleep. Yes, so this is a collection of stories inspired by Scottish folklore, and I loved it. I read it in one sitting whenever it came out, 2018 I think it was. A Guide to Being Born by Ramona Ossabel. It's a book I read in 2015, 2016. I still think about the story about a husband who's really jealous that his wife is pregnant and that her body is changing. So he wishes really hard that his body could change too. And then he wakes up one day and he's got drawers in his chest that he can open and fill with toy dolls, tiny toy dolls. It's really weird. This one is less fairy tale but sci-fi, and there were other sci-fi ones I could have included, such as Some by David Eagleman, Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman, but I decided to go for this, which is Children of the New World by Alexander Weinstein. If you like Black Mirror, then you need to read this, because this is essentially stories that you would find in the TV show Black Mirror. Then I have a short story collection that kind of straddles the fairy tale folklore books and the family ones, and that is Sweet Home by Caris Bray. This has some stories that are inspired by fairy tale, but I think what I love most about Caris's writing is the way that she can write about complicated family relationships. I remember that the end of a lot of these stories just really pierced me in the heart, so if you're looking for a book to do that to you, then I recommend this. These ones, which are the complicated family relationships, more realist short stories, are definitely collections that I have loved more in recent years. It seems to be what I'm more drawn to these days. So we've got Watching Women and Girls by Danielle Pender, which I reviewed all earlier this year and is, at least so far, one of my favourite books that I've read in 2023. It is about women who are observing other women, and it's about how all of these characters feel like they're under scrutiny the entire time and don't always know what they're doing with their lives. And in a very similar vein, we've got We Don't Know What We're Doing by Thomas Morris, which is about 20, 30 somethings, all from this small Welsh town who don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they want to be when they grow up. I also could have included his most recent short story collection, Open Up, which came out a couple of months ago and is one of my favourite books of 2023 as well. That one has a few fantastic or possibly fantastic elements to it. This one is very realist, and several of the stories in here just made me sob. In the best way. We like that sometimes. How to Breathe Underwater by Julie Oringer. I always used to check to see if she had other books out, and she just doesn't, but I am so glad that this one exists. This is about how brutal children can be. The first one in this collection is about a group of children who are playing at one of their parents' houses, and one of the children falls out of a tree house and isn't moving. And none of the other children go and tell the parents. They just go back inside and say nothing. And then slowly they all start to filter off into their various homes. And you just know that there's a child in the garden who is either hurt or has perhaps died. And no one's doing anything about it. It is so dark and tense. Oh, it's so good. Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love by Huma Qureshi. This is about unspoken things within specifically family relationships. One of the stories is about a sister who is blackmailed by her mother into inviting her mother on holiday with her because the mother keeps telling her how much better at looking after her sister is, so she feels like she has to do it. And then it all escalates into this explosive argument, and it just felt very, very real. The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filyar is a book I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It was huge a couple of years ago, currently being adapted into a TV series by Tessa Thompson. This is about a group of women, none of whom I think know each other, but they all are linked via the fact that they all go to church. It's about how they feel manipulated by not really faith. Sometimes faith is a saving grace for them, but just by rules, by societal rules that keep them as very small boxed up versions of themselves, and how they would like to break free from that. I could have picked any of Ali Smith's short story collections, but I decided to go for Other Stories and Other Stories. I love her, I was going to say rambling style when it comes to storytelling. That sounds like it could be a criticism, and I don't mean it as such. It's so free-flowing but also measured. She gets that balance really, really right. And to be honest, actually, this is one that kind of straddles the real life and the fantastical, maybe even more fantastical than real life. I'm not sure. She writes about everything in a very matter-of-fact kind of way, but my favourite short story in this one is definitely a fantastical one. It's called The Hanging Girl, and it's about a woman who's walking around all the time, and just every so often she'll see this girl hanging behind her whenever she looks in a mirror. And it's not really a ghost story as such, it's more she wants to help this girl, and it's supposed to be I guess a representation of her inner child that she's trying to help, and I just found it really moving. And then finally, Dinosaurs on Other Planets by Danielle McLaughlin is a wonderful, painful book about relationships, and you just wish that these characters would sit down and talk to each other and understand each other's point of view. So if that is your catnip, then this is for you too. So we have more orange lighting right now than we did when I stopped filming yesterday. I am going to wrap this video up now. Thank you for joining me for this haul and shelf sort through. I hope that you like the hectic nature of this video. Maybe I'll do more of these types of things in the future. If you're new to my channel and you did enjoy this video and you would like to subscribe, that would be lovely. If you enjoy my content and you would like to consider supporting me on Patreon, that'd be very kind. Patreon is a place where you can throw $1 or £1 in a tip jar, and the money over there helps to support me making free content for everybody on here, and also funds my time making these videos accessible by creating captions and all of that good stuff. And as I said earlier, there are Vlogmas videos over on Patreon, or there will be in December, if you would like to head over and check those out too. I'm sending lots of love to you all, and I will see you for a reading vlog next Sunday. Bye.